All right, I'm so very excited. I had a talk with this guy before. I wasn't really happy with the talk, and he was so good, Samaritan like to give me another shot, an opportunity, more time this time. He's someone that helps companies well, the companies he's board of, he's in the board, helps companies like Uber Eats, Adobe, Dell, Philips, and everything to grow and to get their go-to-market strategies right. He'll explain that in a little bit in normal human words what that means. But I'm super glad to have with me Dave Boyce. How are you today?
Jimmy, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, and yeah, always a pleasure.
That's amazing, man. Yeah. So we had a little chat before, and I'm trying to define like what it is to be successful and at anything. It can be like as a family guy. Seth MacFarlane did that amazingly, by the way. As a businessman, as an artist, like whatever. Like how did your journey start? Because it was a long time ago that you went to start in a consultancy firm, but how did you get to start dreaming and to start chasing those dreams? Like where did that start for you?
Yeah, that's a big question, my friend. What does it mean to be successful? That's a big question. It's a big question. I think we all get it wrong before we get it right, and who knows if we ever get it right. I'll come back to kind of the specifics of the question, but I teach a class to MBAs, like aspiring MBAs, on career and life strategy, and we ask ourselves the same question. And when you go to get an MBA, by definition, you've left a job and you've taken 2 years to retool, and then you're going to go back and kind of re-aim your career somewhere. And I think MBAs want to do that with intention, but we all want to do that with intention. Like, let's aim our career and our life in a direction that's going to be meaningful, and to use your word, that's going to be successful. So one of the things that I thought deeply about this when I built this class, and one of the things I thought about is what will they say at my funeral? Like, what are the words? When people stand up and remember this guy, what are they going to talk about? Are they going to talk, and I listed all the things that, are they going to talk about how much money he made? Are they going to talk about the title that he had? Are they going to talk about the business that he founded? Are they going to talk about the positions that he held? Probably not. Like, maybe something about a title will sneak in there, but those aren't the kind of funerals that I'm used to going to. It's really about relationships, like the people that in whose lives this guy played an important part, the contributions that he made to the world. This is less about title, more about contributions. Like, did this person make a difference? and mastery. Those are the 3 words that I came up with. Like, what was this person good at? This person was really good at making me feel good, or really good at teaching, or really good at building businesses. And this person was, my friend and a friend to everybody. And this person made contributions in the world. So relationships, contributions, and mastery is what I came up with. Now, that's as a 50-something-year-old guy. I'm 56 now. I can't remember when I built the class. But you asked, like, how did we start? How did it start? And gosh, when we're young, we have ambition, and we may not have kind of distilled down our goals and how we're going to aim our career in any sort of useful way. So there's other things that compete for our attention too, like salary and title and prestige and respect. And so, I mean, for me, I think it was a wrestle. Like, I wanted to live a meaningful life, and I also wanted to put food on the table, and I also wanted to make a difference, and I also wanted to gain respect, and I also wanted to do something meaningful. So, I mean, my journey is weird and long and crazy, and there's no way we could dive into it. But like, I started so many companies. I started a painting company, like a house painting company. I started an a cappella band. I started I
Vocal
joined a
point.
consulting firm. I started a B2C software company. I started another B2C software company. And then I joined a B2B software company. I think I was iterating and looking for, where is it going to be interesting? Where can I make a difference? What can I build that's meaningful? And I don't know. I think if your heart's in the right place and you're really searching for true meaning and contribution, like relationships, contribution, and mastery, I think would be 3 really cool watchwords.
Yeah, that's a good one. I just realized the broader the question, the broader the answer.
Yeah. Sorry.
So no, man, that's perfect. Like I love a good philosophy now and then. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. So you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
And you feel this ache to achieve something. You want to go places. You want to be somewhere in life. You've got this vision of where you want to go, or how can I see this at this point in time? You're in your 20s.
Yeah.
What are your dreams? What are your ambitions?
Yeah. So I did not grow up with money. I was the oldest of 8 children, 8, and I wore hand-me-down clothes, meaning other people gave our family clothes so that I could wear clothes, because I couldn't inherit them from my older siblings because I was the oldest, and then so we'd get them from friends. So I didn't grow up with money, and I kind of wanted to have a different life. I wanted some money, and that's not. I'm not proud of that, but I wanted to make money. And I wanted to have my own family, and I wanted to.
Why weren't you proud to want to make money? Because of the whatever means necessary kind of attitude, or how can I see that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I now see money as an outcome, not a primary objective.
100%.
Yeah. So, but I think back then, I think it was pretty close to the top of my list. So, yeah. So in my 20s, gosh, man, I just wanted, I wanted to be the best at something. I can tell you exactly what I did. Like, I looked for the best job I could possibly get coming out of university. And I hunted around for, do I want to be a lawyer? No. Do I want to be a doctor? No. Do I want to be a professor? Maybe. Do I want to be a business person? I had kind of bouts back and forth. And then I found this thing called strategy consulting. I read these articles about McKinsey. I was like, oh my goodness, like these 20-somethings, they put on a suit and they walk into the building and everybody starts speaking in hushed tones because they're there to kind of do some like crazy work. I'm like, I've never heard of this company, like McKinsey. And then I read about a company called Bain. I'm like, that's a job I want to go get. Like, that seems amazing. Like,
sorry for interrupting there. I want to go a little bit deeper into that, because like you're talking about these business people that are also rock stars, and they've got this like presence about themselves. Like, how much also did that affect you to be like, hey, I want to be listened to? Like, okay, money is nice, but being listened to is also nice. Like, does that fit in the picture? Or am I completely of a...
No.
Okay.
Way more than that, right? Because I was less, there were other rock stars, that I kind of learned about, investment bankers. I was just less interested in trading and more interested in being listened to. Yeah, that's a good insight. Like, and I wanted to know how to have a voice that would be worth listening to. And they were wrestling with problems like, should we divest this business unit? Should we enter this new geography? Should we acquire this company? Like, those are big strategy questions. And these young 20-somethings were addressing those questions and squaring off with people 20 years their senior in boardrooms in important cities like Paris and London and New York. And gosh, the company where they do that is one of these strategy firms. So I did my best to get a job at a strategy firm, and I landed one.
Okay. How much from that? Because like that's and there's nothing wrong with it, by the way. I think that society looks really bad at it, but personally, I think it's if it's a drive, it's a drive. Like proudness, pride. Like you're let's be honest. Where do you think that came from to have that need to be like, hey, I want to step in the room. I need everyone to just look at me, make my money by it, but also that spotlight thing. Like, where do you think that came from?
Yeah, I mean, relevance, I guess. I mean, I want to be relevant. I want to make a difference.
Is that because like growing up without money and having those secondhand clothes,
I don't know.
those hand me downs that there was like this social status that people look down on you? You felt like or
maybe
interesting.
we were all kids once, and we all like hung out on the playground and tried to make our way in the classroom, and
Kids are vicious demons, man. Like really,
right.
really. Kids are demons.
Like, and so we all like want to come to the top in some way, I wasn't doing it out of trying to be vindictive or, put other people down, but I had ambition. Yeah. I wanted to do something important.
Okay, all right. So you get the job at McKinsey, which is great. So
Monitor. I worked at Monitor, not McKinsey. It was a competitor of McKinsey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And did you try at McKinsey's or you just went straight to Monitor?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I applied at McKinsey and at Bain and at Monitor. And, I took a weird detour, and this is beyond the scope of this podcast, but I ended up turning down an offer to go to Monitor, and I went and did music instead. Like I was a professional musician for a couple of years. And then when I came back, I applied to all those places, and they were all giving me looks earlier. But I was a different beast at that time because I had taken 2 years off to be a touring musician, and I had like a shaved head and like it didn't quite look the mold. So Monitor took me back, but McKinsey, this close and then didn't want me. Bain didn't even want to talk to me. BCG didn't even want to talk to me. I'm like, I'm the same guy from 2 years ago. I'm the same guy, but I didn't fit the mold anymore. And so I'll forever be grateful to Monitor because they were very open-minded about, oh yeah, you're the same guy. Let's go make a difference.
Just a different look, but still the same mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, you're working at Monitor after 2 years of road life. That's a big 180 turn.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go to the roads? Because like your first okay, I want to achieve this money and this greatness that the McKinsey guys have. Why did you decide to go to the road, and what made you to go back to like, hey, okay, let's go corporate. I know myself now, and I'm corporate, and let's go for that.
So I was, we were staying at a hotel in New Mexico, and we had arrived the night before, and we were doing a concert kind of on this day, but sound check wasn't until 4 p.m. and the show wasn't till like 7:30. And I am, so we were staying in this hotel. I think we're sharing hotel rooms, and I am not a partier, so I wasn't going to stay up until 4 a.m. and then sleep it off and then roll into sound check at 4 o'clock. That's not who I am. So I sleep as late as I possibly can, just like 8, and then I get up, and then I'm like, all right, now what do we do until 4 o'clock? So I'm like, well, there's breakfast downstairs, I guess. So I get dressed in like shorts and flip flops and get on the elevator. And I step into the elevator, and there are 2 men and 1 woman in business suits on the elevator, also going down to the first floor, and they've got like laptop cases. And I'd been touring for a couple of years, and I was jealous of them. I'm like, they're going to go sit in a conference room, and they're going to go talk about some interesting things. I'm going to go to the stupid like hotel breakfast, waiting for the mall to open so I can go over to the mall and kill time until like 4 o'clock sound check. Like, what am I doing with my life? They're going to go solve problems, and I'm going to waste time until 4 o'clock. And that's when I realized, Dave, you weren't put on the planet to be a musician. Like, it's fun, you're having fun, but you're never going to be the best. And you're not you don't write music.
Interesting.
You're not great in the studio. You have fun on stage and people have fun, but you're not going to be the best. And you're jealous of those people that are using their brains to go solve problems. So why don't you just call it? And that was the moment.
Would you say that one of the things that, because like not being the best, very familiar. I hate not being the best. I'm so competitive.
Yeah.
And if I'm not the best at it, I'm like, nah, I'm not even gonna put my time and effort in this because I can't reach the top. Would you say that that's a big reason why also that you're like, hey, look, this business and this strategical thinking, I mean, now you are at the top. Is that also because like the drive of wanting to be the best in something?
Yeah. I mean, I pushed music as far as I could. I was pretty proud of what we did. I very, very much encountered my limitations. Like, I met people who were way better than me. I got in the studio with people who were way better than me. People where music was just gifted to them, like planted into their brain and their soul, and then it just spilled out of them. And I was working way harder than that. And I'm like, you know what? This is your domain. I'm going to go to my domain, stuff that's always come easy to me, which is, more intellectual work. Yeah. And there I can probably be who I was supposed to be.
Okay, nice. Eventually you came back to the music, but we're going to touch on that later. What advice would you have for, because like I like, going on the road is quite courageous also, like, and then trying to apply to these big companies all in their 20s that have like these entrepreneurial itches, or these itches to do something that might seem bigger than themselves, or like that. Like, what would you say to 20-year-old Dave now?
Yeah.
With what you've gone through?
Yeah. Well, one is, do your best to try to get to know yourself. Like,
interesting.
Who are you? What gifts have you been given? What what superpowers do you have? And, things that come so easy to you that you think they must come easy to everyone, but they actually don't, So, and then how can you use those to go make a difference? Get to know yourself, and then be true to yourself. Like, don't do something different than that. Like, if you know that you are an extremely good writer, then lean into writing. If you know that you're an extremely good motivator, then go find places where you can use motivation. If you know that you're extremely disciplined and quantitative, go find ways that you can use those superpowers. Be true to yourself, and then don't. The last thing is, don't do it for the money. And we talked about this at the beginning, but money's not going to hold. It's not going to hold. Like, it's going to be tough, especially if you're doing something entrepreneurial. But everyone in life takes body blows, right? Like, you're going to get fired, your partner's going to quit, someone's going to break your heart. You are going to, you're going to lose something that was important to you, or someone who was important to you. Like, life is going to get tough. And if you're doing what you do for the money, at some point,
it's not big enough.
It's not big enough.
Yeah,
not big enough. So do it for another reason. Do it for, your ability to contribute goodness into the world. And that actually will hold. Like, that'll hold when you get the rug pulled out from under you, but you're doing it for a reason that's bigger than you. You can pick yourself back up.
Yeah, true. I'm reading the autobiography, the biography, not autobiography, but a biography of Elon Musk. And like, this guy, man, when he was so lucky, people are putting so much on his dad and this and that, but like, he's really self-made. Yeah, a little bit help here and there, but not to say like he got it handed over. But the guy had so much grit.
Yeah.
Like, just reading it, like, to see what he went through, and that's I feel, but of course I'm not in his mind, but it's because of his mission to, I want to put people on Mars, and that's so much bigger than himself, and that's why he keeps pushing through. But of course, I'm not in his mind, so I can't say, but that's
right.
How I feel about it. All right. So you're at Monitor. You're still pretty young. How is it going for you there?
Yeah. Well, great, and then not great. Like I went pretty I rose through the ranks. I mean, I did a year of just cranking on projects and getting good reviews. And I mean, also a longer story, but because I had taken 2 years off and gotten married in the meantime and had a kid in the meantime with no health insurance, that doesn't mean anything to people in Europe, but in the US, yeah. So we had debt from our baby. We had debt from just trying to live off of a musician's salary. And I had some ground to make up. And then I was going to move to Boston, which is not a cheap city. And so basically when I took the job with Monitor, I knew that we were going to make less every month than it would cost us to live. And then I negotiated with Monitor a 6-month review to see if we could get my salary to go up at the 6-month mark instead of the 1-year mark. And they agreed. And at that 6-month point, we got to break even. So I'd make every month what I needed for that month. So now we're a little bit better off.
But you're still in this huge bit of debt.
We have a ton of debt still. And then 6 months later, I know that in the 1-year mark, if you've done well at Monitor, you're eligible to go international. Because Monitor is a smaller firm than McKinsey. They managed it as a global firm. And I really wanted to go. That's one of the reasons I was excited to go to Monitor is I could get an international assignment. So after 1 year, I put my hat in the ring to go international. And we had a shot at a project in Switzerland. So I went and did a temporary assignment in Germany, and I speak German. So I'll just hang out there until the Switzerland deal sells. Didn't sell. Come back to the United States and wait. I don't want to take any long-term projects because I'll get stuck in the United States again on some boring project, and I really wanted to go international. But it was getting very hard to hold off. And then there were 2 projects available, one in Greece that came at the same time, one in Greece and one in South Africa. So I call my wife, Lisa, and I say, hey, there's a project in Greece and there's a project in South Africa. But if we went to South Africa, I'd have to leave tomorrow. And she said, well, I've been to Europe. I was like, this is why I love you. She's like, let's go to Africa. I'm like, are you serious? Like, apartheid fell 3 years ago. Like, you know what apartheid is, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't. I mean, I'm just learning about it. They say it's dangerous there. And she's like, yeah, we can make a few calls, but I think we should go. So long story short, I left the next day for South Africa. And she came 2 weeks later with our 1-year-old, 18-month-old kid. She had to pack up the apartment and stuff, right? So, but then that year was really tough. You asked how did it go? First year, great, super ascendant. The year in South Africa, really rough. Like I was not good enough to manage in that kind of an environment.
Man, that is so interesting what you just said there. I am not good enough to manage.
I wasn't. I didn't know it, but I wasn't.
But that takes so much self-knowledge. Like so many people are like, yeah, external factor this, external factor that, external this, external that. In the end, like as long as it's something external, you can't fucking grow. Yeah. Like it's always like, like when you point with a finger, there's 3 fingers pointing towards yourself. I think it's one of my favorite sayings. It really sculpted me a lot. But that's so interesting. Okay. You weren't good enough. What did you do? Like, did you were like, okay, I need to get better and I'm going to grind and get better? Or were you like, okay, let's move and focus on something else?
No, I did it incorrectly. I went heads down and worked 80 hours a week. And I thought I could just work my way through this, right? Like I'm smart. I'll work harder. I'll stay up late. I'll get up early. I just went heads down. Nobody in Africa works 80 hours a week.
Was it also because like the things that you weren't good at were these weaknesses, or were these like things that like strengths that you can like how can I see that?
I mean everybody gets to this point in their career. This was my first exposure to it of when you need to manage and motivate other people to do work and organize them versus doing it yourself. I had a small team. They were not super competent. I didn't really know how to get them to be competent. So I was just trying to do it for them. I didn't know how to manage up. I didn't know how to set expectations. I didn't know how to raise the red flag because I thought it would mean failure. So I couldn't, couldn't say anything to my boss, or I wouldn't say anything to my boss. I just thought, I will solve this. I'll go heads down. The end of that year, I sat down with my boss, and he gave me my ratings, which was like a thing at Monitor. And my ratings were lower after a year in Africa than they had been when I had arrived in Africa. And I was like, Matt, why didn't you tell me this? And he was like, and I was upset. So I was at first like upset, like, hey, if I was doing something wrong, how come I didn't know? But when I sat back and thought about it, it's like, wow. So Keith does it this way, and Ralph does it this way, and Matt does it this way, and I did it the wrong way. So I started like thinking, all right, so what am I going to do when this assignment is over? What am I going to do differently? And that's when I really started learning about kind of organizing an effort across multiple people, managing up, setting expectations. It was way more than about me. It was about kind of the whole team.
Yeah. Interesting, because you said like I just forgot the name, but Keith, the one that
yeah.
Keith was the one that did your ratings?
Oh, Matt did my ratings.
Matt.
Yeah.
So you took out, like, why do you think that he let you be, that he didn't address anything?
Well, he was a young manager too. He probably should have had an earlier conversation with me. To be fair, I had glanced over at Ralph's paper one day during a meeting, and I saw the words on his notebook that said, Dave struggling. Okay. And I'm like, that's his take. Like, that's his take. He wrote the note down in his notebook. He didn't know that I had seen it. So I knew that I was kind of on their radar and that, I was not thriving. But I didn't bring it up. I should have. At that point, I should have said, hey, Matt, I'm struggling. Or
yeah.
And Matt should have brought it up, and neither of us did. Instead, we let it wait for a year. Those are all lessons.
Yeah. But hard learned though, huh? I mean, if it would have been handed on a platter, you wouldn't be maybe today where you are today. So kudos there. Okay, so how did you make the best out of that situation?
Yeah, well, I came back to the United States, and I started taking projects again. I was applying to business school, and I just applied all those lessons. Like, I was extremely deliberate about organizing our plan of attack on any problem that we had, not just about me, about the whole team, about people that I reported to, about the clients that I was working with, about the people who reported to me. Like, we were going to have a clear plan of attack with clear expectations. If anything was going wrong, we were going to raise the yellow flag early because it's way better to raise it early than to let it fester. Like, I learned all those lessons, and I went for another year before I went to business school. And you
really went for upskilling, and like Stephen Covey writes in his book 7 Habits, like sharpening the saw. So you really went to like, okay, what don't I know? What do I need to know? And how can I get there? Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, so you're learning. How's the debt situation going?
So that
you had a rough year.
Yeah, because that first 6 months, boom, I get a bump, and then the next 6 months, boom, I get another bump. Okay, so great. Like, now we're starting to pay off debt, right? Then a year in Africa, 0 bump. Like, in theory, I should go down.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I had a young family. Like, this is but. Learn those lessons, apply them. The next year was actually really good. We actually got all of our consumer debt and student loans paid off just in time to go back to business school and take on another $100,000 of debt.
Little side note on this. In Belgium, it's so hard to take on debt, which is, I think it's a good case in certain things because, like, there's such a big difference between good debt and bad debt. Like, are you putting it into assets or are you consuming,
Right.
But I think that a lot of people are also not seeing the big ass opportunity that comes with being able to take so much debt. Like, okay, it can go horribly wrong, but if you're a little bit keen or a little bit business savvy, it's such like, I tried to go to the bank just to buy an apartment with co-housers inside. So everything, like, the bank was certain of everything. But because I'm self-employed, the bank was like, nope.
Yeah.
No. And okay, because I'm self-employed with small business still, but that also makes things. But like, I think that the risk taking in the States is a lot bigger than here in Europe. Just the entrepreneurial spirit in general.
Yeah.
But that's another discussion.
Well, the next
All right,
piece,
so
the next piece of
yeah.
debt I took was to go to Harvard Business School, and that was that was going to be $100,000, and I didn't blink because I was like, hey, that's a good investment. Like, that's an investment in my career. That's an investment in me. You know, we can get the money. Yes, I have a young family. By now, we had 2 kids and a third on the way, and but I was like, that's fine. We'll take on $100,000 and we'll figure it out.
That's quite optimistic also. Well, like, because I mean, what if? How much do you think that what if, like, because I'm sure that what if voice was there. How did you silence it? How did you, like, you know what? No, let's jump, let's do this, let's go for it. Like, that's quite scary, especially because, like, when I'm in my 20s, I don't have kids. I've got nothing to look out for. You've got a wife, you've got 2 kids, you've got mortgages to pay, I assume. You've got, like, you know, people depend on you at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, I think I turned 30 years old kind of the year I started business school. Timmy, I have an unearned gift. I know it's a gift, and I know other people have different gifts, but I have a gift of optimism. And I know not everyone is wired the same way. Like, people can, people can get the exact same stimuli, and one person can say, oh my gosh, why am I always so lucky? You know, just another day in my life where everything's great. And then a different person get the same stimuli and say, oh no, something good just happened. What's next? I better not leave the apartment, you know, because I don't want the other shoe to drop. Like, what's coming? And it's just based on how you're wired. But I'm the former person. I know that's a gift. I'm very lucky. And so as a 30-year-old, I wasn't really looking over my shoulder. I was like, hey, this is up and to the right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hakuna Matata. Nice. Actually, that it's funny that you bring it up. I just read it quite recently that some people have higher serotonin levels than others. And that's actually, there's a biological reason for some people being optimists, like real diehard optimists. Like there might be an actual neurological explanation for it. It's super interesting.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, so you're doing business at Harvard School. Is this because, like, you got influenced by certain things or certain people? Like, why the choice to go to business Harvard School? And how did those 2 years then? Because it was an MBA that you followed there?
Yeah, MBA, yeah.
Okay, so how did those 2 years go? But before that, what influenced you to go there?
Ambition. Like, I just wanted
ambition.
Ambition, yeah.
Still money driven, or did this change by this time?
Mm-mm. No, it's kind of what you said before. Like, I wanted to matter. Did I want people to listen to me? You know, maybe, but I just wanted to matter. Like, I wanted to be at the top of something. I had already decided I wouldn't be at the top of music. But could I be at the top of business? And, you know, so I applied to 2 business schools, Harvard and Stanford. That was it. And I told myself, if I don't get in, I'll work for another year and then I'll apply to a longer list, you know, and there's lots of great business schools. But for whatever reason in my head, I thought, if I got into Harvard, I would go. If I got into Stanford, I would go. If I got into one of those other schools, I may not go because it would just be in my head that I should be at Harvard or at Stanford. So I got my letter from Stanford first. They rejected me. And then I was waiting for my letter from Harvard, and I was pretty sure I was going to be working for another year. But I opened the letter, and it was an acceptance. And I felt really grateful and lucky. And then when I got to business school, so it was ambition. Like, I just wanted to go to the best school. You know, if I were in, you know, every geography has the best school, and, you know, everybody knows it. If you're in India, you want to go to IIT. If you're in England, you want to go to Cambridge or Oxford, you know. So I felt very lucky. And then what surprised me is once I got there, I was really, really prepared. Like, everyone's smart, and so am I. And everyone can do kind of solve hard things and, you know, be creative and intellectual and analytic, and so can I. And I felt very at home, and I even felt maybe even advanced once I got there. I didn't think I would. I thought I'd feel imposter syndrome, but I didn't. I felt ready to go. And all that preparation that I had done and the work I had done on myself, in consulting and trying hard in school and all the ambition that gets you to try hard on grades and try hard at work and try to improve yourself, it actually paid off. And so I felt like I really love my colleagues from Harvard, and I feel like, we all support each other, and I'm still in touch with them here, 20 years later, and I had a great time.
Was this the first time that you had like really like-minded people surrounding you, or was this already before with Monitor?
Yeah,
Like,
Monitor
really,
was
like-
the same.
Monitor was the same?
Yeah. Smart,
Okay.
switched on people, really creative, interesting people. At Monitor, you talked about, I can't remember if this was before the actual call started or if it was not, but sometimes we try to kind of hide who we are because we're not exactly sure, is that going to be accepted in this environment? But at Monitor, I met a guy who was an organic farmer, and he only worked 3 days a week for Monitor, and then 4 days a week he worked his organic farm in Vermont. Like, that's cool. I'm not an organic farmer, but it's cool that you are. And then I met another guy who was a musician who scored soundtracks in Hollywood, and then he only worked a couple of days a month for Monitor just to kind of pay the bills so that he could keep doing his music stuff. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, you're being who you want to be.
Okay.
And then at Harvard Business School, I met people the same way, like people who had real talent and real interests and real personalities. It's not true about every single person there, but people who weren't afraid to be themselves and had courage and, had been encouraged and felt empowered. And so, yeah, both of those were very inspiring places for me.
Okay, awesome. Very interesting. And then you went, then you got into Profit Logic, if I'm not mistaken, after the Harvard studies.
Yeah.
So already like, some key strategy positions, which is nice. Like really nice key strategy positions. You stay there for quite a while, and then they got because there's Fundly also. Like, help me out with the timeline
Yeah,
here.
we sold Profit Logic to Oracle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you how did you come to Profit Logic? Like, how did that happen?
Look,
So the reason I'm asking is because there's you're still at this point in time in your career, you're still working for companies. You're still, okay, you have key strategy and there's people listening. What?
Ish.
What do you mean ish?
So when I was at business school, I made a vow that I wasn't going to go work for a company.
Okay.
I was going to go be an entrepreneur. Like, that was my thing. Like, so we founded a company while I was in business school called buyiq.com. We raised money from a venture capitalist.
Okay.
We moved an engineering team up from Duke University. We set them up in Cambridge, and I did not drop out of school. The kids from Duke did drop out of school, and we and we were going for it. Right? It was 1999, and the internet was amazing.
So Harvard studies MBA plus founding a company at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right,
yeah.
awesome.
and a couple of kids. Yeah, like we were going for it. Like, I had energy and ambition and optimism, and that company we ended up getting beat to the punch by a couple of well funded competitors, and we made the decision, I don't know if it was right or wrong, to say, we're too late, let's scrap it and go do something different. So we founded a second company while I was at business school, and pretty much the same team. And we were pitching that to venture capitalists. And on a fateful day in April of 2000, the whole .com bubble started crashing, and we were actually sitting in the conference room for the investment committee at a venture capitalist called Matrix, and only half of the investment committee was there, and the other half were super distracted. They were looking down at their BlackBerries because the whole market was blowing up. So that company, we actually couldn't get funded. And now I was like, well, shoot, now what do I do? Like, I got kids and I'm graduating. Those student loans are going to start coming due. Like, what do I do? So I negotiated my way. But I had never done a single interview while I was an MBA. So I graduated without a job. But I had met a lot of interesting people because we had been out raising money. So I knew a lot of venture capitalists and I knew a lot of fellow entrepreneurs, and there was stuff going on. And so one of those venture capitalists said, hey, why don't you come over here and look at this company that we're trying to invest in? I think you would do great. And they positioned me at this company, which eventually was Profit Logic. And so it was kind of like my consolation prize. Like I didn't found it, but I was very early, and it was an entrepreneurial thing, and at least I wasn't working for the man.
Okay, so you vowed to never, to never work for a firm anymore, to be entrepreneurial and be your own boss. What made you make this vow? Like, why did you decide this during your MBA? Like, hey, I'm more of a creator than an executioner.
Well, I love that word, creation. Like I was very motivated by creating things more than managing things. And so, and I didn't have to be the guy. Like I didn't have to be the CEO, but I wanted to be early. Like I could be on a team that are building something, that are actually creating something. And I had built this music thing, and that was fun. And then I went into consulting, and I really liked the people, but we were working for other causes. They weren't my cause. We were working in, little problems within a giant company, and it just wasn't as motivating to me. So, I just figured, hey, I know how to make stuff come to be out of, thin air. So why don't I just do that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And how did you? Because then, okay, so then at Profit Logic, you had like, you were in the entrepreneurial team, so you could steer the ship a little bit. Then you get into Oracle, where you stayed on for 5 years. Like how did you? Like was that nice to stay there for 5 years, or were you like missing kind of something? Like how was that?
So the first 2 years, we should edit this out because it's exactly opposite of what I advised earlier. The first 2 years I had golden handcuffs, and so I did it for the money.
Okay.
And we had a young family. We had at the time.
This is gonna get clipped, by the way, just so you know.
No, I don't care. We had 6 kids, and they were very young, and I was making good money, and for each of the 2 years that I stayed, I would get like a lump sum payment. So yeah, I did it for the money. I stability, like let's help Lisa and the kids and everyone, like not disrupt their lives, and and I was and then the next 3 years, I stayed 2.5 more years, rounded up to 3, and was good on Oracle. They kept giving me bigger and bigger jobs, bigger and bigger assignments. I had a global assignment. I was flying all over the world. I had about 30 products that I managed. I had about a $200 million budget that I spent every year. And so I was feeling like,
like someone in a cozy seat.
Yeah. But it was not, but you had a good insight there. Like it was not feeding my soul. It really was not. And I knew people, I needed to be grateful, because a lot of people worked their whole lives to get the job that I had, but also it wasn't feeding my soul. So I went and talked to a mentor of mine, a guy named, that probably a lot of your listeners know, Clayton Christensen, who wrote he wrote The Innovator's Dilemma and The Innovator's Prescription. He invented the theory around disruptive innovation. Really, really, really kind guy. And I sat with him in his basement, and he asked me some questions. I said, I could keep doing this, and then I could put all my energy into like community and family and coaching. I could even coach startups, and he's like, well, what's the alternative? I said, well, I could leave and go start something on my own. And he's like, do you have an idea? I'm like, yeah, I have a couple. He sat for a minute. He said, I think I would cry myself to sleep at night, Dave, if I thought you were going to spend the rest of your days at Oracle. And I was like, okay, that's what I needed. Like a guy I really respected.
A little push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I left.
So before Before we go into Fundly, it's a very nice segue to one of my questions. Who did you get influenced by? Except for what you just told me, of course.
Yeah.
I know it's a but just, to have a little segue to the influence part.
I mean, Clayton is a hero of mine for sure. And he, and other people who have the same characteristics are heroes of mine too. But like,
which characteristics are these?
Integrity. He is not afraid to ask hard questions, natural curiosity, intellect. Those are things that I value a lot.
Oh, we're going to be friends.
And then what I knew about Clayton, because I lived in the same town as him, is he also just showed up. Like if somebody needed help, he showed up. Like this guy's a famous guy. He's been on the cover of Forbes magazine. Like he's ranked, 1, 2, 3, and top 5 of management thinkers every single year. And then he would just show up and help load boxes into a minivan to help somebody move. Or he'd be there with his kids, on the basketball court, coaching them in like a junior league. Or he would, I would see him in these contexts where he was just like a regular guy showing up, sleeves rolled up. And I'm like, he's a world-class thinker, a world-class human at the same time. And so, man, I knew of several people like that in our little town. And those are people I really looked up to. Yeah.
Awesome. And how many of these, like how many did you get, like, except for Clayton, like did you have the luck to attract as a mentor, as someone to give you advice in business, in life, and things like this?
Well, this also is luck. So I was a member of I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church.
Okay.
And we went to church in Belmont, Massachusetts, where Clayton Christensen also went to church, and Kim Clark, who was the current dean of the Harvard Business School, also went to church, and Mitt Romney also was in that same congregation, and a guy named Steve Wheelwright, the guy that invented cochlear implants, was in that congregation. Like really, really solid professionals and really, really solid humans. So I just sat at their feet, like, and I got plenty of attention from them, and I asked them questions, and I watched the way they lived their lives, and I just kind of, and Lisa also learned a ton from watching those families. They're amazing women who are mentors to Lisa, PhDs who were raising families, and who were some of them had careers and some of them had put their careers on pause, but all really, really sharp, really brilliant women. And so we just soaked that all in, and just tried to channel it and hoped someday to be that same role model for somebody else.
Last question before we go back to Fundly. So you got lucky enough that they put attention towards you. You just told me. Do you think that this is due to the questions you asked, due to the brightness that you showed, due to the just the interest and the passion that you showed? And like now getting to 56, as you said before, like, getting to a tipping point of like, being menteed, which will still happen, I guess, like, but like also mentoring now more. Like, how much do you think that these traits make it less about luck and more about the person? Like, those questions asked, the brightness and all of that. What's your take on that?
That is a really good question.
Oh, hey.
That is a good question, because there were other people, in our same congregation who probably didn't have the same conversations. So this gets back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier. It's, it's courage. And some of us have it naturally and some of us have to develop it. But, courage is something that can actually help you take steps forward. And we all have some amount of courage. We all have actually a decent amount of courage. It takes courage to get out of bed every morning. It takes courage to go like talk to somebody. It takes courage to go to school, as you said, like the demons that you mentioned, like it takes courage to go to middle school and junior high and high school. It takes courage to like try to learn a new language. You're hosting a podcast right now in a language that's not yours, your native language. Like those things take courage. And so but then it also takes courage to talk to someone who is, famous and ask them a question, and just kind of break through and just assume that they'll reciprocate. And so I did that, and some other people did it.
I want to show you something funny.
Yeah.
One of my idols, one of my big idols is Gary Vee. I think the guy's amazing. I've been trying to get him on my podcast. I can't know if you. It's too bright. Let me, wait,
the contrast isn't working. Yeah.
Wait, let's. So
there we go.
This is me asking Gary Vee if he wants to be on my podcast. I have a daily reminder set in my calendar. I send him like Instagram, LinkedIn, and everything. I'm just like, I'm going to keep on going until he's like, who the fuck is this psycho that keeps fucking bugging me with his fucking podcast?
Yeah. But you know what? Like, I mean, I am a little bit on the other side of it now, and I appreciate when somebody has the courage to reach out to me, even like you're doing. Like,
don't ghost me, man. It's disrespectful.
Because I'm busy and I got lots of stuff going on, and so let's say there's 100 people who at some point it crossed their minds, I'd like to talk to Dave. There's not 100 people who've reached out to me.
Nah, man, true.
There might be 5, and of those 5, there might only be one who's really persistent, and that one is the one I end up talking to.
Yeah. I
like it. I actually like it when I get in the conversation. It's just a matter of you got to break through, you know?
It's super interesting that you say that, because like at first, one of my things that was also like for Gary Vee, for instance, like, oh my God, his time is so important. And then I'm like, okay, wait, I'm grinding daily. Like I wake up at 5, I start working at 5:20, I work until 8. Like I'm grinding like a motherfucker, And I'm really putting so much effort. And I'm like, wait, but why would this guy's time that is one thing ahead of me, and that's the only thing he's got ahead of me, Give me the same amount of time and I will fucking catch up to you, bitch. Like, this little superiority complex there. But anyway, like, I think that putting things in perspective is so important. Like, and I think that for me is the reason why I finally got the courage, as you say, to be like, hey, let's ask Dave, because I do want to have a conversation with this guy, and our time is equally important. And there's no thing as like, more or less important. I think that mindset really, really, really hit it off for me. Man, thanks. Great insights. Back to Fundly.
Well, I left Oracle to go join a tiny little 5-person startup that they recruited me to be the CEO. And so, no more first class tickets, no more, black cars picking me up. I'm showing up in a tiny, grungy little office, and we're trying to make something work. And this was a fundraising platform, crowdfunding, but for social good. I basically kind of went all in on this little company. I had 6 kids, like I mentioned, and we lived in a dream house, in a dream neighborhood, in this neighborhood that I'm talking to you about, where all these mentors live. And I realized very quickly in 2 things. One is we're not going to make this company work unless I move it to Silicon Valley.
Okay.
We just didn't have the kind of social engineering, like social network expertise in Boston, and we didn't have kind of the mentality, and I wasn't going to be able to raise the right money, and we weren't going to have the right ecosystem. So we're going to have to move it to Silicon Valley, which means I got to move my family to Silicon Valley. So that was number one. So we, just like that decision to move to Africa in one day, we kind of just like, all right, here we go. Like, we'll sell our dream house. We'll pack up all our stuff and our 6 kids and our dog, and we'll move to Silicon Valley. And then
seeing a mental image of like your kids in a suitcase packed up.
Oh yeah, it was almost that. We had them all in a minivan. And then when we got to Silicon Valley, I realized, and we're looking for houses, and and it is way more expensive in Silicon Valley than Boston. And we are like right at the bottom of the market. Maybe we can buy a house, kind of thing. And then we decide, you know what? Let's not buy a house. Let's just rent, and let's just figure this market out and just see if this is even going to work. So we did that. And then about 2 months later, I realized my second thing, which is I can't pay myself anymore. Like, I got to turn my salary off. Like, this company's not going to work if I keep drawing a salary. So we turned my salary off until I could go raise money. So now it was game freaking on, right? Like I had moved 6 kids.
Back on the wall and
Yeah.
yeah.
It was rough, like no salary, super expensive. At the time we lived in Los Altos, it was the most expensive zip code in the United States. Yeah, it was game freaking on. Like it was, so anyway, long story short, I don't know how much we want to talk about Fundly, but I was able to raise money. It was a slog. We were able to build that company and eventually get it sold. And then I moved my family to Utah from there.
How much do you say? Because like on the one hand, okay, interesting. So on the one hand, like, having to have the need to provide for your family could be like a hold me back, kind of thing. But on the other hand, it can also be like, hey, I have to provide for my family. Like, how much of a drive was this to not try to find something that works, but to really steer it to work? Like, how much do you think that this necessity drove you to it?
So I would look, try not to get emotional here. I would look my kids in the eyes every night, and I would know that they were doing tough things too. Like my oldest kid was really trying to get good grades. He was doing 5 hours of homework a night. And my next kid was really working hard on wrestling and music and school. And every one of my kids, like, were trying their best. Like, they were working hard, they were diligent, they were trying to improve themselves. And then I'd look, and they would look to me for encouragement, and they'd look to Lisa for encouragement, and their eyes would be wide, and you could tell that they were vulnerable, but they were going to go and, try again today. And I would think, Dave, your kids don't need you to give up. They need you to try, because you're asking them to try every single day. Like, and so they need an example of someone who is going to go, is going to go work and hard and put themselves out there. Like, if I just we're still sitting, at a desk at Oracle, like punching my time card, like that's not inspiring. So we ended up, and I told you I'm a person of faith. We ended up like praying as a family that Dad could raise money for this company, and that we would, and that Fundly would work. And it was a real kind of pull together moment for us, like, hey, you're trying, I'm trying, we're all trying, we're doing our best, like we're putting ourselves out there, we're finding the edge of our capability, and we're even pushing a little bit beyond that. And, that's just kind of like, and it might work and it might not. And the kids knew that it might not. But I felt like I owed it to my kids.
So even your kids went all in together with you. That's like, how tough is that to, like, my mom, she really wonderful mother, like really, she's a charm. She was like middle management, big, also pretty big companies. My granddad used to be CEO of General Motors here in Belgium. So
Whoa.
Very lucky to get my mind from these amazing people. One thing though was that my mom was a very close person to try to protect her children, in the sense of like, my problems are not my kids' problems, which also is strengths. Personally, I'm more like, kids aren't that weak or something. I hear you being very open about your situation with your kids, or did you try to protect them also from reality, or did you like really, school them on life and like, hey, this is life, it will get tough, you will get, punched in the face, figuratively and literally, like how's that?
So Silicon Valley is a magical place, and I learned a lot there. And I learned a lot from a guy who worked with me at Fundly, a guy named Markham. And he was just like, hey, of course it's tough. Of course we might not make payroll, but that doesn't mean that like we can't talk about it. Like, so we're going to talk to our friends about it. We're going to talk to our spouses about it. We're going, like, he was so like embracing of the whole kind of mentality. So we ended up like, I ended up embracing that culture for myself. Coming from Boston is a little more reserved, but in Silicon Valley, like everybody's been in a failed startup. It's like, that's fine. So we'd actually throw parties and would bring our kids to the office and would do face painting, whatever, you know, stuff that didn't cost a lot of money, and they'd have fun. They knew the office, and they knew that I was at a startup, and they knew that it may or may not work. And I'm telling you, Timmy, like, I think it's really important for my kids today, who are now, my oldest is 28, my youngest is 16, for them to have had that experience. Because now they're out trying stuff. Like my oldest is pursuing a PhD, and my next oldest is doing a machine learning, and my next two down are actually also doing machine learning, and they're trying really hard. And they know that it may or may not succeed, and they know that, you know, it's not fatal when it doesn't succeed, and they can pick themselves back up. They've watched us do it a few times. We did it as a family. I didn't hide anything from them, so that they don't think that failure is terminal. It's like wired into them that you can try, you can fail, you can try again, you can fail again, you can try again, because they watched us do it.
It's courage, man. This being that open, I think for me personally, that is courage. Like that, like, damn, like no, big respect for that. Wow, crazy, man. Really, really, really cool story. Man, again, so little time, so interesting. I wanted to go a little bit further to just like a little time skip. I know Zenprint comes in between, but to inside sales. Reason why is I'm also talking with Chris Orlop. Oh man, amazing guy! Like wow, what he did with Gong was huge.
Hey,
and it was really funny because
speaking of courage, you're going to talk to Chris, and hopefully your listeners will listen to this one. Chris was an SDR at Inside Sales, and I was a VP.
Yeah.
He came and found me and said, "Can I take you to lunch? I'll pay for lunch. I just want to talk to you." And I said no, and you know, I said yes, but then we didn't schedule it, and then, you know, sounds good, and then I ignored him, but he kept after it, and we ended up going to lunch. And he's like, "I read a lot. I've studied up on your career. I want to learn from you. I want to buy you lunch." And finally, like, we just went to lunch. And check out where that ambition has gotten him.
Man, like really, I got like the guy is amazing sales guy. It's funny because I'm in this P Club. It's the first thing ever that I subscribe to. I'm like so. I've got, like, as I said, a little superiority complex. So I'm always like, yeah, okay, this seems okay, but I'm better and I'm better. And then this is the first time that like actually someone convinced me to be like, oh, I got a lot of upskilling to do. So huge kudos there to Chris. It's funny because I'm also trying to get him on my podcast, and he agreed, but he said like first, I think he said 50 episodes first, or something. So he put me, he gave me a goal for it. But I'm gonna smash it. Chris, you're coming, just so you know.
Amazing.
So inside sales, you were a VP, you know, like you touched, I think in a way Chris also, because he said like, yeah, it's funny because he used to not be a direct lead of mine, but you know, he influenced me. Like, was it around that time that you start like being from mentored before and like more to you know, mentoring other people, or how can I see that?
Wow, that's insightful. I think it was actually while I was in Inside Sales. Yeah, because I had to build a whole team. You know, I ended up running all of customer success and all of product, and then chief strategy officer. So I was kind of like building, and I built a team, and I recruited people, and I had, you know, and they were moving their families from wherever they lived to Utah. Some of them knew what they were getting into, and some of them didn't, and they were pinning their hopes and dreams on Inside Sales and this career and this opportunity that I was setting up. So I had to apply all these lessons that I had learned at Monitor about setting a team up for success, that I had learned from Fundly about, you know, having courage and just, you know, putting it all out there. And now I had to help other people step into kind of their version of courage and go kind of pursue their careers and make them successful. And what I really, really did flip for me at Inside Sales was, it's not about my success, it's about their success.
Their
And
success is comes automatically if they're successful.
Right. Yeah. So let me just erase myself from the center of the picture and put them right in the center of the picture and help them succeed, help set them up to succeed. And this is when I came up with kind of my framing for what it means to be a good, a good leader is helping a group of people get to a place that they can't see. That's my definition of leadership. Yeah. So that means I got to be able to see it. I got to be able to articulate it. I got to be able to communicate it so that they can at least see part of it. And then I got to help them take steps forward towards it. So helping a group of people get to a place that they can't see is true leadership. And then in terms of my role as manager, I need to help them understand what success, like what progress looks like. And I got to remove barriers for them. So I'm going to give them credit. I'm going to take blame. I'm going to remove barriers. I'm going to help them make the progress that they want to make. And I learned all of that kind of, I mean, I had a big team at Oracle too, but I don't think I was as good of a leader there as I was at Inside Sales.
Where would you say, because that's an interesting course of events, like way back, getting inspired by these McKinsey kids that are the center of attention, to, you know, starting to lead successful teams and big teams, you know, and like having to give that spotlight up. Like, where do you think that was a gradual transition, or was that more of an aha moment somewhere, like, hey, if I enable people will, you know, it will automatically return the enablement, if that makes sense. And also very quick question in between, would you rather chase people or agreements?
People or agreements?
Yeah.
Chase people or agreements?
Yeah.
I don't think I understand the question. What does chase mean? Chasing
people or chasing agreements?
I want to say people, but I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, no worries. It's this discussion I had lately with someone, and was like, if you agree something with someone,
it sounds like a good discussion.
Yeah, you can push on agreements really hard, but if you push on people, they might, you know, be like, Murr.
Oh, I see.
So
yeah,
one of the things that I learned in my leadership is like to chase agreements instead of people.
Got it. Yeah.
So just wanted to but that, well, let's keep that question.
To your question, I'm sure it was gradual, but I remember an exact place where I was standing by myself on a walk in the middle of the day outside of the offices of Inside Sales when I just formulated those words, like, it's not about you, Dave. It's about these other humans who are really trying to be the best version of themselves. And then from that point forward, I just, you know, remind myself. But I do remember a moment.
Nice. That is really nice. Yeah, 5 lost minutes. So I got, let's see if I got everything. I think I got a lot of stuff. So success in the beginning meant the money. Then with the MBA that you teach, it means relations, contributions, and mastery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How far would you think that yourself, through your self-defined meaning of success, are on that scale of success? Like, where are you now, and what do you still need to get where you want to be? Or do you say like, okay, I'm good now, I'm done?
Oh, no. If you look, you can't see on my blackboard, but I have my 2024 goals written up there so that I can look at them. And yeah, like every year for the last 3 years, I've had goals about relationships, specifically like friends, siblings, kids.
Interesting.
Lisa. Like, I'm working actively on relationships. I have specific goals. Like, I think it matters. Contributions, like I publish on Substack every week. I just completed a book, and it's being published by Stanford Business Press. I'm really proud of that. I've worked on it for over a year. But to me, that's a contribution. Like, hey, I learned some stuff in my experiences with go-to-market and product, and now let me write a book, and let me put some stuff out there, and let me like have conversations with people like you, and let me teach. So relationships and contributions are really, really important to me, but there's no way I'm done. Are you kidding me? Like, there's so much work to do. And mastery, I'll never be a master at anything. I think I'm good at some stuff, and I want to own the stuff that I'm good at, and I want to help other people figure out what they're good at and own that, and step into the best version of themselves. I had a conversation with a friend. So this book.
Do you truly believe you would never be a master or anything, or is that more of a social needed humility there?
Maybe. I mean, I'm decent at some stuff, right? Like, this conversation will be relevant. So here's a preprint of the book. This is just 5 chapters. Product that sells itself. I handed this to a CEO a few weeks ago, and he was excited to get it. And he's like, "Dave, is this your thing? Like, is this what you put on the planet to do, PLG?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, what is it?" And I heard myself say, "Breathing courage into young people." First time I'd ever strung that phrase together. And he's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Yeah, because after this book, we're going to go do some more books on career and life design. And that's what I'm learning in the course of teaching this class and reading everything I can on it. So yes, I know a lot about product-led growth. And yes, we're teaching people about that. And yes, I'm learning about it every day. But is that my purpose in life? No. Breathing courage into young people, I think, is the thing that I can bring. And so
you're on the wrong platforms for that. Huh? You need to work on your Instagram and TikTok.
Right. Exactly. Well, young in air quotes. I don't know. Yeah, I probably should.
No, amazing. Oh man, Dave. Damn, I'm pretty sure that in the future we'll have you again. So much to talk about. I told you last time, by the way, I have a nice anecdote for the product-led growth. It's just like the self-scan in the supermarket. So I think it's one of the most easy ways to explain that to people that don't know what product-led growth is in the GTM world. Self-scan in the supermarket. Dave, man, again, thank you so much. You humble me with your presence and with your amazing aura. And really, you're an amazing human being, and looking forward to many more discussions, I hope.
Rock on.
One thing to say, and that's it was very, very nice to meet you.
Thank you, Timmy. Amazing. Thank you.
I love that sentence. Nice to meet you. Amazing. Stay on for 2 seconds if you want, and also if you don't want.